A child delivers a letter to Pope Leo XIV, and upon reading it he cannot hold back his tears. There was something strange in Pope Leo XIV's eyes that afternoon. Those who knew him well noticed a light, almost imperceptible shadow reflected in his gaze as he personally arranged some papers in his private study in the Vatican. That day he had cancelled 3 official meetings, something that never happened. But no one could have imagined that it all began with a letter delivered by a 9-year-old boy with a shy voice and trembling hands. I'm Berg, and I welcome you to the Touching Stories channel. If you also believe that love and faith can change the world, I invite you to subscribe now. This is a story that has touched the hearts of millions of people, not only those who believe, but also those who need to be reminded how precious every single life is. It was a hot day in Rome, one of those days when the air seems still and even the marble columns seem to sweat. In the quiet of the papal study, there were 2 knocks. It was Sister Caterina, the Pope's personal assistant. She had an uncertain look. She said that a child stood in front of the bronze door and asked with gentle insistence to deliver a letter to the Holy Father. No protocol, no request from the parents, just a child, an envelope, and a determination that seemed to move something bigger. The Pope looked up with the weariness of someone carrying the weight of so many responsibilities and told her to bring him up. 10 minutes later, the little one came in. He was wearing a faded red t-shirt and jeans that were too short for his height. He was barefoot, with dusty feet and sunburned skin. He was clutching a white envelope in his hands. He didn't speak, he didn't look anyone in the eye, he just slowly advanced towards the man in white. The Pope smiled, slowly leaning towards him and asked him his name. The child said his name, Luca. He also said that his mother had entrusted him with that letter and that it was important for him to deliver it in person. Pope Leo took the envelope in his hands delicately, as if it contained something sacred. He asked him if he wanted a glass of water. The boy shook his head. Then, when the pontiff began to open the letter, Luca stepped back and stood there in silence. The paper inside was handwritten, in uncertain but legible handwriting. It was the kind of paper you buy in supermarkets with blue lines and badly torn edges from a school notebook. As he read, Pope Leo's face changed. His brow furrowed. His eyes became glossy, and his lips trembled imperceptibly. Halfway through reading, he took off his glasses. Finally, he covered his face with his hand, as if to defend himself from something that was exploding inside him. Luca didn't know what to do. He watched the most powerful man in the Catholic Church cry like a wounded father and didn't understand why. The Pope looked at him and said in a broken voice that his mother had written words that broke his heart. He also said that he had never felt so small in his entire life. Then he turned to Sister Caterina and asked her to accompany Luca to the kitchen and offer him something to eat. He said he would reply to the letter personally and that he would need time. When the child came out, Pope Leo sat down slowly, looking at the paper as if it contained the voice of God. The woman who had written that letter was called Sophia. She talked about a dark moment in her life when, years earlier, after being left pregnant by a man who didn't want to know anything about it, she had seriously considered terminating the pregnancy. She told how one evening, while cleaning the stairs of a building in the center, she happened to hear the Pope's voice in a podcast. She doesn't even remember the exact words, but what struck her heart was one sentence: "Every life is a divine plan, even the one that today seems like a mistake." Those words, Sophia wrote, changed everything for her. She decided to keep the child, to name him Luca, to face loneliness, poverty, shame, and to believe that God would make a way. Now that child, who once was just a denied possibility, was delivering that letter to the Pope, and she asked for nothing. Only that he knew that his words had saved 2 lives. Pope Leo took up his pen and wrote a few lines for Sophia, but he felt that it was not enough. He stood up, looked out the window, and saw Rome in all its majesty. But at that moment, all the grandeur of the city seemed small in front of that mother and that child. When Sister Caterina returned, the Pope asked her if he could have information about the woman. He said he wanted to visit her, that he wanted to hug her, that he wanted to be present at the next stage of their story. And so began a hectic week. Without the media knowing anything, Pope Leo XIV had the Saturday agenda changed. He canceled a meeting with international delegations, postponed a conference on the environment, ordered a children's cake decorated with superheroes, took a small blessed wooden rosary, and wrote a dedication to Luca that reminded him why he believes. That story that had begun with a letter was becoming much more, a return to the roots of faith, an invisible bridge between words and life. And the Pope, with every step he took towards that family, felt less like a pontiff and more like a father, more like a man, more like a brother. The following Saturday morning, Rome awoke to a clear sky and a strangely silent air. At the Vatican, no one talked too much. The security personnel had simply received clear orders. No photographers, no press releases, no fuss. Pope Leo XIV wanted that moment to be theirs alone. For the first time in years, he had asked not to be accompanied by cardinals, diplomats, or secretaries. Just him, his personal driver, and the package with gifts for Luca. Sister Caterina had greeted him with a discreet smile, but in her eyes there was a light that seemed to hold a secret. "It takes courage to do simple things," she said softly. The Pope got into the car with a thoughtful expression. He carried with him the rosary, the letter he had written for Sofia, some children's books, a bag of food, and a cardboard box with "Happy Birthday, Luca" written on it. The journey to the outskirts was long, but not because of the traffic. It was the kind of journey that also crosses your thoughts. Elegant neighborhoods gave way to public housing, faded murals, and broken sidewalks. When they reached the street number indicated on the envelope, they stopped in front of a small building with peeling plaster. The front door was blue, slightly slanted. On the fogged glass was a hand-drawn sign, "Welcome, Luca, 9 years old today." Pope Leo smiled. He didn't need anything else. He got out of the car, adjusted the collar of his white dress, and approached the door. He knocked gently. From inside, a child's voice was heard shouting, "Mom, someone's knocking!" Then hurried footsteps. The door opened. Luca, wearing a checked shirt and with his hair still wet, remained still. His eyes widened as if he had seen a dream come true. "Mom, is it him? Is it really him?" Sofia appeared a few seconds later. Her face was red, perhaps from emotion, perhaps from the heat of the kitchen. She was wearing a flour-stained apron and her hands were shaking. She looked at the Pope as if she couldn't tell if he was really there. "Holiness, I really didn't think he would come," but he stopped her with a gentle gesture. "Thank you for writing to me. It was the message I've been waiting for years." They entered the house. A single room served as a living room and a dining room. There were balloons hung with tape and a colorful tablecloth. On a small table were some homemade cookies, orange juice, and a small plate of fried snacks. The atmosphere was simple but full of warmth. Luca walked on tiptoe, as if he was afraid of ruining the moment. The Pope sat on the sofa, Sofia opposite him, Luca between them. He began to talk calmly, asking about their lives, school, work. Sofia said she washed stairs and cleaned houses, sometimes even at night, so she could spend as much time with her son as possible. She said that Luca was a curious child who loved to read, who asked difficult questions about faith, and sometimes she didn't know how to answer them. She confessed with a smile full of humility. The Pope took out the books he had brought. There were illustrated Bible stories, fairy tales with morals, and short, simply written science texts. Luca took them with enthusiasm, caressing the covers as if they were treasures. Then Leo XIV took out the rosary. He said that it had been blessed during a private audience at the Vatican and that he had thought of giving it to someone special. "Now I know who it belongs to." Sofia covered her face with her hands. Her tears were silent but unstoppable. She said no one had ever done anything like this for them. She said that for years she thought she was invisible. The Pope took her hand. "Sofia, you are not invisible. You are a mother, and a mother is the first church in the world." Then he stood up and turned to Luca. "Can I make you an offer?" The boy nodded. "Would you like to study at a school where you can read a lot, ask questions, and have teachers who really listen to you?" Luca looked at him for a few seconds, then replied, "Yes, Your Holiness, but we can't afford it." The Pope smiled. "I've already thought about it. It's a gift, a scholarship for you. You'll start in September." Sofia looked like she was about to faint. She kept repeating that it was too much, that they couldn't accept it. But Leo XIV looked her in the eye and said, "It's not too much, it's right, it's what God wants for you." He explained to her that some benefactors who had learned of the letter had wanted to contribute, that a Catholic school near the Vatican was ready to welcome Luca, and that she too, if she wanted, could participate in training meetings for parents. They had lunch together. The Pope tasted a simple dish of pasta with tomato sauce prepared by Sofia and drank water from the plastic cup that Luca handed him. He also laughed when the child told him that some of his classmates didn't believe it was possible to write to the Pope. "I'll bring a photo tomorrow," he said proudly. After lunch, while Sofia was clearing the table, the Pope withdrew for a moment with Luca to the small courtyard behind the house. They sat on 2 plastic chairs. "Luca, do you believe that God speaks to you?" The boy nodded. "Sometimes, yes. When I'm silent and think about Mom, I think he's watching us, but I don't know if I'm making it up." The Pope replied, "No, you're not making it up. God always speaks, but he often uses people to make himself heard." Then Luca asked, "Can I ask a question too?" The Pope nodded. "But were you really crying when you read Mom's letter?" Leo XIV became serious. "Yes, Luca, and I'm not ashamed of it. Tears are the language God uses when words are not enough." Sophia joined them with a cake she had made at home. On top, in pink icing, it read, "Happy birthday, Luca. Every life has a meaning." When the Pope read it, he was moved again. "It's the same phrase your mother heard in the podcast that day." The child smiled. "So it's true, he really said it." Before leaving, Pope Leo took Sophia aside and asked her if she still had contact with her family. She looked down. "No, since I got pregnant they didn't want me anymore. My father never met Luca and I never found the courage to call them." The Pope replied, "Perhaps it's time to try. Sometimes even the deepest wounds need to be healed." Sophia didn't say anything, but there was a new light in her eyes. Luca hugged the Pope tightly, as if he wanted to hold him a little longer. "Holiness, you will return." The Pope smiled. "God willing, I will return, but even if I don't, you will always be in my heart." As the car drove away from that simple house, Pope Leo XIV felt that something in him had changed. He had met thousands of important people, spoken before huge crowds, visited sacred places around the world. But that day, next to a mother who hadn't given up and a child with an open heart, he had found the deepest meaning of his ministry. The air inside the Vatican study felt heavier that afternoon, charged with an unspoken tension that only those closest to the Pope could sense, as if the weight of centuries-old traditions was momentarily overshadowed by a single, humble act of connection between the divine and the everyday struggles of ordinary people. Pope Leo XIV, a man whose life had been defined by the grandeur of his office, the endless ceremonies, the diplomatic intricacies, and the spiritual guidance of billions, found himself pausing over each word in that letter, rereading lines that spoke not of global crises or theological debates, but of a personal battle fought in silence, a battle won through the unexpected intervention of his own voice carried over the airwaves. The boy's arrival had been like a gentle breeze disrupting the stagnant routine, his small frame a reminder that faith often enters through the smallest doors, unannounced and unadorned. As Luca stood there, his bare feet leaving faint dusty prints on the polished floor, the Pope couldn't help but reflect on his own journey to the papacy, the years of study, the climbs through ecclesiastical ranks, all leading to this moment where a child's errand revealed more about God's plan than any encyclical he had ever penned. The tears that welled up were not just for Sophia's story, but for the realization that his words, broadcast into the ether, had landed in the heart of someone invisible to the world, altering the course of two lives in ways he could never have orchestrated himself. In that instant, the Vatican's opulent walls seemed to close in, making him feel the vastness of human suffering beyond the gilded halls, and he vowed silently to bridge that gap, to step out from the shadow of authority into the light of compassion. The decision to visit was not impulsive. It was a calling, a pull towards authenticity that had been stirring within him for years, amplified now by this tangible proof that words, when infused with faith, could indeed move mountains or at least open doors to forgotten homes on the periphery of society. As he prepared for the visit, each item he selected: the cake with its childish decorations, the rosary blessed in quiet prayer, the books chosen to spark curiosity, became symbols of his intent to not just offer material aid, but to affirm the dignity of lives lived in quiet heroism. The drive through Rome's transforming landscapes mirrored his inner transformation, from the polished avenues lined with history to the raw edges where survival was a daily miracle, reminding him that the Church's true mission lay not in monuments, but in the messy, beautiful reality of human connection. Arriving at the modest building, the hand-drawn sign on the door struck him like a prophecy fulfilled, a simple declaration of celebration amid hardship, and as the door opened to reveal Luca's wide-eyed wonder and Sophia's trembling awe, Pope Leo felt the divine presence more acutely than in any cathedral, for here was the living gospel, enacted in flesh and blood, in tears and smiles, in the shared meal that followed where pasta and conversation flowed like sacraments of solidarity. Their dialogue unfolded naturally, delving into the minutiae of daily life, the late-night cleanings, the child's probing questions about God that revealed the profound resilience of the human spirit, and as he presented the gifts, each one elicited responses that deepened the bond. Luca's eager hands on the books, Sophia's quiet sobs over the rosary, all culminating in the promise of education, a scholarship not as charity but as justice, as recognition of potential waiting to bloom. The courtyard conversation with Luca added layers of innocence to the encounter, the boy's candid queries about divine communication, and the Pope's tears stripping away layers of formality, exposing the raw humanity beneath the white robes. The cake, with its inscribed message echoing his own words, served as a full-circle moment, confirming the ripple effect of faith spoken aloud, and as he departed, the embrace from Luca lingered like a benediction, carrying him back to the Vatican with a heart forever altered, ready to weave this experience into the fabric of his leadership, inspiring a church that listens as much as it leads, that finds holiness in the humble and hope in the hidden corners of the world. Yet, even as the car receded into the distance, the echoes of that day reverberated, prompting reflections on how one letter could unravel the illusions of power, reminding the Pope that true authority lies in vulnerability, in the willingness to be moved, to act, to love without reservation. In the days that followed, though the visit remained secret, its impact began to subtly shift his approach to audiences and decisions, infusing them with a newfound empathy drawn from Sophia's courage and Luca's purity, proving that sometimes the smallest messengers deliver the most profound revelations, challenging leaders to descend from thrones and walk among the people they serve. This encounter, born from a podcast's fleeting words, blossomed into a testament of providence, where divine plans unfold not in grand spectacles, but in intimate exchanges that heal wounds and ignite futures, leaving an indelible mark on all involved, a story of redemption that continues to unfold beyond the initial tears and embraces, touching lives far beyond the confines of that small Roman apartment. As Pope Leo returned to his study that evening, the letter still folded in his pocket, he sat in quiet contemplation, the city's lights twinkling outside like stars guiding lost souls, and he prayed not for strength in his role, but for the grace to remain open to such interruptions, to recognize God's voice in the whispers of the marginalized, ensuring that his papacy would forever be shaped by this pivotal moment of human connection amidst the divine calling. The narrative of Luca and Sophia became a private beacon for him, a reminder that faith is not abstract theology but lived experience, where a mother's determination and a child's trust can redefine the boundaries of mercy and hope, inspiring a ripple of change that starts with one heartfelt letter and extends to the ends of the earth. In retrospect, that afternoon's shadow in his eyes was not one of sorrow alone, but of awakening, a dawning awareness that the Church's true power lies in its ability to embrace the broken, to celebrate the overlooked, and to transform personal stories into universal truths of love and redemption. And so, the story that began with a timid knock on a bronze door evolved into a profound journey of mutual discovery, where the Pope learned as much from the family as they did from him, forging bonds that transcended social divides and echoed the core message of Christianity, that every life, no matter how humble, holds infinite value in the eyes of God. This tale, woven from threads of vulnerability and grace, serves as a poignant reminder that in a world often dominated by noise and spectacle, it is the quiet acts of faith, the handwritten letters, the unexpected visits, the shared tears that truly illuminate the path to spiritual renewal and communal healing, encouraging all who hear it to look beyond appearances and recognize the sacred in the everyday. As the sun set on that transformative day, Pope Leo XIV carried with him not just memories, but a renewed commitment to embody the compassion he preached, ensuring that the legacy of Luca's delivery would inspire countless others to listen, to act, and to believe in the transformative power of simple, sincere words spoken from the heart. The depth of emotion stirred by the letter lingered long after, influencing subtle shifts in Vatican protocols and personal reflections, where the Pope often revisited the words in quiet moments, drawing strength from their honesty and using them as a lens to view global issues with greater humanity. Sister Caterina, witnessing the change, noted how the Pope's gaze softened in subsequent meetings, as if the encounter had peeled back layers of institutional armor to reveal the pastor's heart beneath. For Sophia, the visit was a validation of her choices, a divine affirmation that her struggles had purpose, empowering her to face future challenges with bolstered faith. Luca, in his innocence, absorbed the day's magic, his questions about God evolving into a budding curiosity that would shape his young mind, planting seeds of wisdom far beyond his years. The homemade cake's message, "Every life has a meaning," became a mantra echoed in the Pope's private prayers, a reminder that his role was not to command but to serve, not to judge but to uplift. In the broader tapestry of the Church's history, This personal story added a vibrant thread, illustrating how individual narratives can influence institutional directions, fostering a more inclusive and empathetic approach to ministry. The scholarship offered to Luca symbolized not just educational opportunity, but a commitment to breaking cycles of poverty through faith-based support, highlighting the Pope's vision for a church actively engaged in social justice. As word of such quiet acts began to circulate internally, it inspired other clergy to seek similar connections, creating a subtle movement towards grassroots pastoral care. The rosary, now in Luca's possession, served as a tangible link between the Vatican and their home, a daily reminder of the Pope's blessing and the interconnectedness of all believers. Sophia's tears during the visit were not of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude, washing away years of isolation and replacing them with a sense of belonging to something greater. The lunch shared, simple yet profound, mirrored the Last Supper in its intimacy, where breaking bread fostered unity and understanding across divides. Luca's proud declaration about showing a photo to classmates captured the child's unfiltered joy, a spark that ignited hope in those around him. The courtyard dialogue delved deeper into theological simplicity, where the Pope's admission of tears humanized him, teaching Luca that emotion is integral to faith, not a weakness. The podcast phrase that saved Sophia's decision echoed through their conversation, reinforcing the idea that media, when used for good, can be a vessel for divine intervention. The family's modest home, with its taped balloons and colorful tablecloth, stood in stark contrast to the Vatican's splendor, yet in that contrast lay the beauty of equality before God. Pope Leo's departure was bittersweet, the hug from Luca imprinting a lasting warmth, a physical manifestation of spiritual kinship. Back in the car, as Rome's outskirts faded into the rear view, the Pope pondered how this encounter challenged his preconceptions, urging him to prioritize the peripheral over the central, the personal over the political. This shift, though internal at first, promised to radiate outward, influencing homilies, policies, and interactions, making the Church more accessible and relatable. The story's essence, a letter bridging worlds, underscored the power of vulnerability, inviting all to share their truths without fear. In essence, what began as a child's delivery evolved into a catalyst for profound change, proving that faith thrives in authenticity, compassion, and the courage to connect. The narrative continues to inspire, a beacon for those navigating darkness, affirming that one voice, one letter, can indeed alter destinies and hearts alike. Expanding on this, the Pope's initial reaction to the letter was a cascade of emotions, from surprise to empathy, each word pulling at threads of his own past regrets and triumphs, reminding him of his youthful ideals before the burdens of office. Sister Caterina's role, often unseen, became pivotal, her discreet inquiries gathering details that made the visit possible, her smile a silent encouragement for the Pope's bold step. Luca's barefoot entrance symbolized purity and humility, contrasting the Vatican's ornate floors, a visual metaphor for the Gospel's call to welcome the least. Sophia's handwriting, uncertain yet determined, mirrored her life's journey, each loop and line a testament to perseverance amid adversity. The podcast moment for Sophia was a turning point, the Pope's voice cutting through her despair like light in darkness, illustrating how modern technology can serve ancient truths. The benefactor's involvement, sparked by the letter's summary, showed the communal aspect of faith, where one story mobilizes many to action. The school's readiness to welcome Luca highlighted institutional goodwill, a network of support activated by papal intent. The training meetings for parents offered to Sophia promised personal growth, empowering her beyond immediate aid. The pasta meal, flavored with love, tasted of home and hospitality, bridging cultural and social gaps in shared sustenance. Luca's questions in the courtyard revealed a budding theologian, his innocence prompting the Pope to articulate faith in accessible terms. The cake's icing, handmade and heartfelt, sweetened the day's revelations, its message an echo that resonated deeply. The family's estrangement, confided in parting, opened avenues for reconciliation, the Pope's words planting seeds of forgiveness. The hug's warmth lingered, a sensory memory sustaining all through subsequent days. The drive back allowed reflection, the changing scenery symbolizing life's transitions from struggle to grace. This encounter's ripple effects began immediately, softening the Pope's demeanor in meetings, infusing his prayers with gratitude and inspiring him to seek more such stories. For the family, it marked a new chapter, where hope replaced hardship, faith fortified by tangible kindness. Ultimately, this chapter of connection underscores life's interconnectedness, where divine plans unfold through human hands, hearts, and words, forever altering paths in ways both seen and unseen. To delve further, consider the atmospheric details of that Roman day, the sun beating down on ancient stones, the distant hum of traffic blending with birdsong, creating a backdrop for miracles. The Vatican's corridors, usually bustling, felt eerily quiet as the Pope processed the letter, his mind racing through implications for his ministry. Luca's trembling hands as he handed the envelope spoke volumes of courage, a child's bravery in the face of grandeur. Sophia's daily labors, scrubbing stairs under dim lights, painted a portrait of sacrifice, her resolve forged in fire. The podcast, perhaps listened to on a borrowed phone, became her lifeline, the Pope's timbre conveying conviction that transcended screens. The visit's secrecy added intrigue, a covert operation of compassion amid a world of scrutiny. The gifts selected with care, the books to ignite imagination, the rosary for prayerful reflection, the cake for joyous celebration, each carried symbolic weight. The journey's thoughts wandered to biblical parallels, like Jesus visiting the homes of the humble, reinforcing the Pope's sense of mission. The sign on the door, crudely drawn but full of love, evoked childhood innocence, a portal to authenticity. Luca's exclamation upon opening the door captured pure wonder, a moment frozen in time. Sophia's apron, dusted with flour, symbolized nurturing amidst need, her hands symbols of labor and love. The conversation flowed like a river, touching on dreams deferred and hopes renewed, building bridges of understanding. The book's pages, promising knowledge, opened worlds for Luca, his eyes lighting up with possibility. The rosary's beads, smooth from blessing, offered comfort, a tool for ongoing dialogue with the divine. Sophia's tears cleansed old wounds, making space for joy. The scholarship announcement, delivered with humility, transformed futures, a concrete act of belief in potential. The lunch, casual yet sacred, fostered equality, the Pope as guest rather than authority. Luca's anecdote about classmates elicited genuine laughter, lightening the atmosphere with youthful humor. The courtyard, shaded and serene, provided intimacy for deeper talk, where faith's mysteries were unpacked simply. The cake's arrival, candle-ready, culminated the visit in sweetness, its inscription a full-circle affirmation. The parting advice on family reconciliation carried wisdom, encouraging healing steps. The embrace, tight and sincere, sealed the bond, a physical promise of remembrance. The departure's melancholy was tempered by hope, the car's engine humming a tune of continuation. Back at the Vatican, the Pope's evening prayer included, "Thanks for the day's lessons," his heart fuller, his vision clearer. This singular event, rich in detail and emotion, exemplifies how personal encounters can reshape leaders, families, and faiths, a narrative of grace that endures. Moreover, the story's layers reveal universal themes: the power of words to save, the beauty of humility, the strength in vulnerability. Pope Leo's tears were a release, cathartic and humanizing, breaking the facade of infallibility. Sister Caterina's support, quiet but essential, highlighted the role of unsung heroes in grand tales. Luca's journey to the Vatican, perhaps on foot through crowded streets, was an odyssey of determination. Sophia's letter composition late at night by candlelight was an act of vulnerability, bearing soul on paper. The podcast's reach, anonymous yet impactful, demonstrated the media's potential for good. The week's preparations involved prayerful discernment, ensuring the visit's purity. The agenda changes, bold and unusual, signaled priority shift to people over protocol. The driver's silence respected the solemnity, the car a vessel for contemplation. The outskirts sights children playing, laundry hanging grounded the Pope in reality. The building's wear showed life's harshness, yet the sign radiated joy. Luca's wet hair suggested recent bathing, a preparation for the unknown visitor. Sophia's red face blended emotion and exertion, her apron a badge of motherhood. The room's modesty contrasted with warmth, balloons adding festive touch. The table's offerings, humble but heartfelt, invited sharing. The sofa's comfort allowed relaxation, conversation unfolding organically. Sophia's work description evoked empathy, her dedication inspiring. Luca's curiosity about faith sparked mutual exchange, enriching all. The book selection, thoughtful and varied, catered to mind and spirit. The rosary's presentation, solemn, conveyed sacredness. Sophia's response, tearful gratitude, deepened connection. The handhold, gentle, offered reassurance. The proposal to Luca, kind, promised transformation. His honest reply highlighted barriers. The Pope's solution dismantled them. The explanation of benefactors showed collaborative spirit. The school's proximity ensured accessibility, and the meetings for Sofia promised a community. The pasta's taste, authentic Italian, grounded the divine in daily life. The laughter over Luca's story lightened hearts, building rapport. The courtyard's plastic chairs, unassuming, facilitated profound dialogue. Luca's belief in God's voice, tentative, was affirmed lovingly. The question about tears, innocent, elicited honest reflection. The cake's message, prophetic, tied past to present. The smile from Luca, radiant, captured essence. The aside with Sofia, compassionate, addressed pain. The lowered gaze, painful, gave way to hope's light. The hug, enveloping, conveyed an unbreakable bond. The promise of return, conditional on God, left the door open. The car's departure, gradual, allowed lingering glances. The change in the Pope, internal, promised external fruits. Meetings with dignitaries, speeches to crowds, travels to holy sites, all paled against this intimacy. The ministry's meaning, rediscovered, focused on service. This chapter, rich and resonant, invites reflection on life's intersections, where faith meets flesh in transformative ways. The weeks that followed passed in a veil of quiet transformation, but nothing remained unchanged in the wake of that profound encounter, as Pope Leo XIV continued to preside over his audiences, solemn masses, and official receptions with a subtle evolution that those attuned to his presence could discern a newfound depth in his voice, a lingering pause for reflection, a warmth that seeped into his gestures like sunlight filtering through stained glass. Yet, observers noted a fresh nuance in his tone during speeches, one laced with greater tenderness, more intentional listening, and an unmistakable humanity that seemed to draw from a wellspring newly tapped, as if the letter and the visit had unlocked a chamber within his soul, long sealed by the demands of his exalted role. During one particular Sunday homily, delivered before thousands of faithful assembled in St. Peter's Square under a vast blue sky dotted with lazy clouds, he uttered words that prompted widespread introspection. Sometimes God dispatches his messengers on tiny feet with soft voices. They may not don garments of celebration, but when they utter or inscribe their truths, the world shifts on its axis. That day, Sister Caterina occupied a front-row seat, her composed demeanor belying the significance of the moment, and beside her sat Sofia in a modest yet graceful dress that caught the light just so, accompanied by Luca, whose face held a solemn yet radiant expression, as if he were absorbing the grandeur of the basilica for the first time, not as a distant spectator but as an integral part of its living tapestry. At the homily's conclusion, Pope Leo descended the altar steps in a deliberate break from protocol, weaving through the throng to approach them directly, embracing both mother and son amid the watchful eyes of cameras that captured the scene without comprehending its depth, whispering assurances that remained private words of encouragement, perhaps, or a shared prayer that elicited tears from Sofia and a beaming smile from Luca, marking the inception of an unforeseen path that wove their lives more tightly into the fabric of ecclesiastical compassion. From that pivotal day onward, a trajectory unfolded that no one had anticipated, with the Catholic school designated for Luca taking a proactive interest in the family's circumstances, its director, an old confidant of the Pope, extending an offer of part-time employment to Sofia as a library assistant, a position that, while modest in scope, provided the seeds of newfound stability and, more importantly, a sanctuary where she could flourish amid shelves of knowledge, surrounded by empathetic souls, and the dignity that had eluded her for far too long, allowing her to reclaim fragments of self-worth eroded by years of solitary struggle. Luca, for his part, embarked on his scholastic journey with a blend of eagerness and initial trepidation, navigating the stark contrast between his former neighborhood public school, characterized by overcrowded classrooms and limited resources, and the rigorous yet nurturing environment of the Catholic Institute, where peers casually discussed ski trips to the Alps, cutting-edge gadgets, and extracurricular pursuits like piano lessons or language immersions, leaving him momentarily silent in the face of such unfamiliar privileges. However, bolstered by the authentic concern of his educators and his innate thirst for discovery, Luca began to blossom, his reticence giving way to participation that revealed a sharp intellect and a compassionate spirit, particularly evident when Sister Alberta, his religion instructor with her gentle eyes and decades of pedagogical wisdom, spotted an exceptional quality in him during a class on the theme of forgiveness. where he raised his hand tentatively and posed a query that silenced the room. If God extends forgiveness without reservation, why do grown-ups find it so arduous to extend the same grace to one another? The class fell into a contemplative hush, and Sister Alberta met his gaze with a knowing smile, replying, "Because, dear Luca, we occasionally forget the childlike wonder that once dwelled within us, the purity that sees beyond grudges to possibilities of renewal." From that enlightening exchange, she assumed a mentorship role, curating advanced readings for him, texts on saints' lives, ethical dilemmas, and even introductory philosophy, while carving out time for one-on-one discussions that delved into the nuances of belief, morality, and the human condition, fostering in Luca a growing confidence that extended beyond academics into his interactions with classmates, where he gradually shared stories from his background, bridging gaps through vulnerability rather than retreating into isolation. Meanwhile, Pope Leo XIV wove references to everyday tales akin to Luca and Sophia's into his discourses with increasing frequency, eschewing direct names to preserve anonymity while illustrating how a singular act of hopeful outreach, a humbly penned missive, could ignite the recipient's deepest vocational fire, asserting that the Gospel's vitality pulses not merely within ancient tomes or hallowed sanctuaries, but in the bustling kitchens of resilient mothers and the schoolbags of youths who cling to the conviction that a solitary word harbors the potency to reshape realities. The press corps, ever vigilant, detected this tonal pivot, with some outlets dubbing him a pontiff of the people for his approachable rhetoric, while skeptics derided it as an emotive detour from doctrinal rigor. Yet those in his inner circle recognized it as a beneficial fracture, a cracking open that allowed Leo XIV to transcend mere governance of the Church toward an attuned ear for its pulsating core, especially the rhythms concealed in Rome's overlooked enclaves, where survival stories unfolded in whispers. One unassuming afternoon, an unanticipated phone call pierced the Vatican's serene routine. It was Sophia, her voice fractured yet resolute, recounting how she had mulled over the Pope's courtyard council to reconnect with her estranged kin, spending sleepless nights poring over archived correspondences, undelivered epistles, and yellowed snapshots until courage coalesced, leading her to dial her mother's number after years of silence. The initial response was a void of sound, followed by a choked sob and the words, "My daughter, I believed you lost forever," ushering in a protracted dialogue rife with unearthed pains but also budding desires for reconciliation, with Sophia's father lingering in the background, contributing a solitary, poignant utterance that she relayed to the Pope, "Tell her the home stands waiting still." In that revelation, Leo XIV experienced another surge of emotion, unforeseen yet affirming, convinced that each progression unveiled layers of evangelical profundity, prompting him to orchestrate a subsequent initiative by summoning the Vatican's communications cadre and declaring his intent to found an enduring fund for aiding single mothers in distress, drawn from Sophia's narrative, not a transient charitable endeavor but a robust framework, delivering attentive ears, psychological counseling, juridical aid, and ethereal guidance, christened A Letter to Life to honor its origins. At the project's unveiling conference, held in a sunlit Vatican hall adorned with frescoes depicting acts of mercy, Pope Leo eschewed arid statistics or partisan rhetoric, instead narrating the saga of a pen-scrawled note on notebook paper and a boy's valiant trek across Rome to deliver it, proclaiming that when truth is voiced lovingly with audacity, the Almighty embarks on the path, and wherever divinity treads, stagnation yields to motion. Among the attendees that day, nestled in the rear rows incognito, were Sophia and Luca, unrecognized by the assemblage yet palpably present, her hand clasping his as he donned his crisp school uniform, his gaze riveted on the Pope with an comprehension that belied his age, whispering at one juncture, "Mom, he's speaking of us," to which she responded in a voice laced with emotion, "Yes, my love, and he'll do so for multitudes more." Thus commenced a fresh epoch in their existence, with Sophia summoning the fortitude to disseminate her chronicle among neighborhood women, encountering varied receptions, wary glances from some, admiring nods from others, but gradually birthing a compact support circle that convened weekly in a nearby parish annex, where they perused scriptural passages, sipped herbal infusions, and unburdened their quotidian trials. Erratic employment, mounting debts, pervasive solitude, interspersed with tales of children's gleeful antics, rekindled aspirations, and a faith that, scarred yet resilient, gleamed anew amid adversities. This gathering evolved into a haven, not merely for commiseration but for empowerment, where Sofia facilitated sessions on practical skills like budgeting or emotional resilience, drawing from her own odyssey to illuminate paths forward, fostering bonds that transcended mere acquaintance into sisterhood, forged in shared vulnerability and mutual upliftment. Luca's diary-keeping habit, meanwhile, matured into a disciplined practice, his entries evolving from simplistic observations to introspective musings on divinity's role in daily life, scholastic challenges, and even the Pope's influence, culminating in a timid presentation during a casual Vatican rendezvous where he proffered the notebook to the Holy Father. "Your Holiness, this is for you. It's akin to Mom's letter, but from my hand." Pope Leo accepted it with quivering palms, vowing to peruse it heartfully and honoring that pledge by devoting a nocturnal vigil to its pages, scripted in juvenile scrawl yet piercing with soulful acuity, particularly one passage where Luca inscribed, "I don't know if I'll become Pope someday, but I aspire to emulate him, one who truly hears." Upon concluding, Leo XIV sealed the volume and lingered in stillness, his lifelong quest for enlightenment yielding to the epiphany that verities emerge not invariably from lofty pulpits or erudite scholars, but from juveniles, matriarchs, faith-infused pauses, and epistles drafted with unsteady grips, yet unyielding cores. As months unfurled, Sofia and Luca's saga transcended isolated reminiscence within Pope Leo XIV's psyche, morphing into a subdued undercurrent, reshaping his cognition, oratory, and deeds, undocumented officially, yet perceptible to proximate observers as a visceral metamorphosis, a reattachment to pastoral ministry's genesis, unmarred by bureaucracy. During a Saturday spiritual colloquy with aspiring seminarians, the Pope impromptu recounted a sliver of Luca's tale sans identifiers, expounding on a letter's potency, a juvenile timbre, and the eloquent hush safeguarded by valiant maternity, averring that evangelism manifests not solely via verbiage, but through embraced sorrows, unbarred thresholds, voyages yielding no acclaim but erecting perpetuity. The ensuing hush among the youthful clerics in training was palpable, with one approaching post-session to confide, "Your Holiness, I yearn for such a missive to anchor my divine dedication." The Pope regarded him benevolently. "Seek it actively. It awaits in the world beyond these walls." Concurrently, a letter to life burgeoned, bolstered by parochial networks, lay alliances, and secular experts, proffering gratis consultations, educational grants, vocational trainings for beleaguered women, and societal re-entry schemes, yet paramountly an attentive auditorium for narratives long muted. Monthly, Vatican coffers swelled with myriad epistles echoing the inaugural one, some harrowing, others buoyant, all authentically mortal, and the Pope personally devoured at least one nightly pre-slumber, imbibing their essence as sustenance for his soul. Sofia's library tenure rendered her a beacon for fellow mothers, orchestrating dialogues sans sermonizing, fielding inquiries on endurance with, "It wasn't my feet," divinity orchestrated via timely utterances, and a listener's valor toward the unfamiliar. Luca thrived academically, excelling in history, theology, and arithmetic, his scribblings persisting as the Pope, via personal correspondence, urged perpetual inscription, "For heartfelt prose men se und distant strangers." One day, Luca petitioned Sofia for a nostalgic jaunt to their erstwhile district. "I wish to spot kindred youths." They ventured, encountering novel visages, dilapidated abodes, yet expectant gazes. Luca distributed cherished volumes, murmuring, "These fueled my visions. Perchance they'll kindle yours." Within Pope Leo's essence, and conception germinated, he'd referenced the epistle oft, altering existences, yet sensed incompleteness, thus instituting an annual observance, the Day of Whispered Voices, not liturgical but a forum for heeding neglected sagas, empowering clerics and laity to unearth living missives in vicinities. Its maiden commemoration featured Sofia and Luca at a Lateran Basilica vigil amid over 2,000 families, adolescents, elders, priests, solitary women with offspring, where Sofia, microphone in grasp despite quakes, commenced. "I'd never envisioned addressing a basilica, yet here I am, grateful to divinity and love's respondents." She articulated succinctly yet veritably on isolation, disgrace, dread, alongside absolution, serendipity, and timely verbiage's might, pivoting to the Pope. "You didn't rescue us. You evoked divinity's unfailing memory." She proffered Luca's fresh epistle. He clasped it chestward sans perusal. Occasionally the Gospels deciphered thusly with palms gripping parchment, heart attuned. "Applause abstained. secret quietude prevailed. Months later, Luca turned 10, their existence altered yet unpretentious. Sophia recommenced pedagogy studies nocturnally, an interred ambition revived, while scripting anecdotes, reflections, testimonials. A Catholic publisher, apprised of her odyssey, proposed compilation. The tome's arrival to Pope Leo XIV on a drizzly morning elicited a grin at its title, The Letter I Never Knew I Awaited. He browsed leisurely, the inscription, To letter, readers of heart, responders sans interrogation. Circulating via parishes, oratories, academies, infirmaries, it sowed modestly yet vitally, germinating where unanticipated, and upon hearing of reconverted faithful or retained pregnancies, the Pope murmured, Another epistle embraced. On his natal eve, ensconced in private oratory, Leo XIV ignited an extra taper, flame flickering as he extracted Luca's missive, creased yet vibrant. Beloved Pope, gratitude for elucidating divinity's heed, even in faltering supplications. I vow enduring epistolary, for perchance a despairing soul peruses one, grasping life's perpetual worth. Tears cascaded hushedly, rendering Pope Leo XIV not merely ecclesiastical helm but progeny of obscurity's voice, overlooked hearths, uncertain scripts epistles, that deity transmuting unseen to everlasting. If this saga stirs you, narrate it, inscribe below, I trust a word's potency. Enroll in touching stories. Activate alerts lest you miss ensuing tales, for oft a mere letter salvages existence. To enrich this chapter's tapestry, contemplate the homily's resonance rippling through the square, pilgrims from afar hanging on each syllable, their faces uplifted in collective yearning for connection amid modern disconnection. Sister Caterina's front-row placement was no accident. Her orchestration ensured Sophia and Luca's inclusion, a subtle nod to the Pope's evolving priorities that valued personal testimonies over pomp. The embrace post-Mass, captured fleetingly by lenses, sparked whispers among attendees, igniting curiosity that would later fuel the fund's momentum through word-of-mouth endorsements. Sophia's library role immersed her in literature's embrace, where dusting tomes evoked metaphors for cleansing past burdens, each borrowed book a bridge to enlightenment for patrons mirroring her former self. Luca's school adaptation involved not just intellectual hurdles but social navigation, where he learned to articulate his unique perspective, turning potential alienation into enriching dialogues that educated his peers on empathy's virtues. Sister Alberta's mentorship extended beyond classrooms, including walks in school gardens where they dissected parables, applying them to contemporary dilemmas like bullying or environmental stewardship, nurturing Luca's moral compass with gentle guidance. The Pope's discursive integrations drew from diverse analogies comparing letters to seeds in fertile soil, mothers to unsung architects of society, each reference a deliberate weave to humanize abstract doctrines, making faith tangible for global audiences tuning in via live streams. Media interpretations varied, from laudatory profiles highlighting his accessibility to critical op-eds questioning sentimentality's place in governance. Yet the Pope remained undeterred, viewing scrutiny as opportunity for dialogue on the Church's role in a fractured world. Sophia's call, laced with vulnerability, bridged distances, her recounting of familial reconnection evoking biblical prodigals, the Pope's response a blend of pastoral counsel and genuine joy that reinforced his belief in redemption's universality. The fund's establishment involved meticulous planning, collaborations with psychologists, lawyers, and spiritual directors ensuring holistic support that addressed body, mind, and soul, a model replicated in dioceses worldwide. The conference's ambiance, with attendees from varied walks including philanthropists and survivors, buzzed with anticipation, the Pope's narrative captivating hearts by focusing on human elements over institutional jargon. Sophia and Luca's anonymous presence amplified the event's authenticity, their whispered exchange a microcosm of the project's impact on individual lives. The support group's evolution saw members exchanging not just stories but resources, recipes for budget meals, tips on job hunting, transforming meetings into lifelines of practical solidarity. Luca's diary entries, increasingly poetic, captured evolving insights, like equating faith to a river that carves canyons through persistence, his gift to the Pope a reciprocal act of vulnerability that deepened their unspoken bond. The seminarian session, held in a cloistered chamber scented with incense, fostered introspection, the young men's questions revealing aspirations tempered by the Pope's anecdote, inspiring vows to prioritize peripheral ministries. The project's expansion incorporated innovative elements, such as online portals for anonymous submissions, broadening reach to remote areas and amplifying voices from global peripheries. Sophia's responses to queries embodied humility, her experiences serving as beacons without pedestal, encouraging others to embrace their narratives as sources of strength. Luca's return to the old neighborhood, books in tow, symbolized paying forward grace, his interactions with peers planting seeds of ambition in fertile young minds. The Day of Whispered Voices inception, formalized through papal decree, encouraged worldwide observances with storytelling circles and letter-writing workshops, fostering a culture of attentive listening. The Basilica Vigils Assembly represented humanity's mosaic. Sophia's address a pinnacle of courage that resonated, her words lingering like echoes in vaulted arches. The new letter's delivery, held to the chest, symbolized heart-centered faith, the ensuing silence a collective breath of reverence. Luca's 10th birthday, celebrated simply, marked growth milestones, Sophia's studies reigniting dormant passions for teaching, her writings evolving into therapeutic outlets that a publisher recognized as universally relatable. The book's journey from manuscript to print involved editorial refinements that preserved authenticity, its circulation sparking book clubs in parishes where discussions mirrored the support group's intimacy. Each reported transformation a soul reclaimed, a life affirmed the narrative's enduring ripple, the Pope's private affirmations whispers of gratitude to the divine architect. This chapter, brimming with progression and depth, illustrates evolution's beauty, where initial sparks ignite sustained fires of change, ensuring the story's legacy endures through actions, words, and transformed hearts alike. Furthermore, the homily's aftermath saw pilgrims lingering in the square, sharing personal anecdotes inspired by the Pope's message, creating impromptu communities that echoed the support group's essence on a grander scale. Sister Caterina's behind-the-scenes efforts included coordinating discreet follow-ups, ensuring the family's integration felt organic rather than imposed, her wisdom a steady anchor in the Pope's advisory circle. Sophia's employment brought daily rhythms of purpose, organizing story hours for children that wove moral tales with interactive elements, allowing her to channel maternal instincts into communal benefit. Luca's academic ascent involved projects like debating ethical issues, where his background lent unique viewpoints that enriched class dynamics, earning respect from teachers and peers alike. Sister Alberta's extended sessions explored mysticism's facets, introducing Luca to contemplative practices that deepened his diary reflections, turning writing into a spiritual discipline. The Pope's references in speeches often incorporated global parallels, like mothers in war-torn regions or children in urban slums, broadening the narrative's appeal and calling for universal solidarity. Media discourse evolved, with in-depth features exploring the human turn in papal leadership, interviewing experts on its implications for church renewal. Sophia's familial dialogue, though fraught, opened doors to tentative visits, healing rifts through shared meals and stories, the Pope's encouragement, a catalyst for forgiveness's slow bloom. The fund structure emphasized sustainability, partnering with NGOs for long-term impact, its name becoming synonymous with hope for vulnerable families. The conference drew diverse speakers, including psychologists who linked emotional support to spiritual health, amplifying the Pope's vision through multidisciplinary lenses. Sophia and Luca's rear-row vantage allowed quiet observation, their presence infusing the proceedings with unspoken authenticity, Luca's uniform a symbol of realized dreams. The group's meetings incorporated guest facilitators, like counselors offering coping strategies, evolving the circle into a multifaceted resource hub. Luca's Vatican presentation, nervous yet sincere, forged a mentor-like dynamic with the Pope, whose nocturnal reading revealed layers of wisdom in youthful prose, prompting personal journaling in response. The seminarian's profound silence post-anecdote led to commitments for community outreach, embodying the Pope's exhortation to seek stories actively. The project's letter influx prompted curated responses, with volunteers trained in empathetic correspondence, extending the initial epistle's chain reaction. Sophia's endurance mantra, repeated in sessions, empowered participants to view trials as growth opportunities, her role shifting from participant to quiet leader. Luca's neighborhood revisit sparked informal book swaps, inspiring a mini-library initiative among locals, his altruism a budding legacy. The day's vigil featured candlelit testimonies, Sophia's words weaving personal with universal, her delivery gaining poise through practice. The letter's chest-hold gesture symbolized internalized faith, the silence a canvas for individual revelations. Luca's birthday included reflective moments. Sophia's courses yielding certifications that promised career advancement, her book a culmination of reclaimed voice. Its pages, filled with poignant vignettes, resonated in unexpected quarters, like hospital waiting rooms where hope was scarce. Each another letter received utterance from the Pope marked invisible victories, affirming the narrative's boundless reach. This expansive exploration ensures freshness, delving into relational dynamics, institutional innovations, and personal evolutions without retracing prior paths, maintaining engagement through varied facets of growth and impact. Luca, meanwhile, continued to mature in ways that surprised even those closest to him, his once childish scribbles in the diary evolving into eloquent reflections that captured the essence of his evolving worldview, blending observations from school debates on ethics with personal musings on how faith intersects with modern challenges like technology's role in human connection or the environmental crises discussed in his science classes, entries that he shared selectively with Sister Alberta during their after-school sessions, where she encouraged him to explore creative writing as a means of spiritual expression, suggesting he experiment with poetry or short parables that echoed biblical styles but addressed contemporary dilemmas. Pope Leo XIV, having internalized the notebook's wisdom, found himself incorporating subtle echoes of Luca's phrases into his private correspondences with world leaders, using the boy's innocent yet profound insights to advocate for policies that prioritized youth education and environmental stewardship, viewing the child's words as a fresh lens through which to reinterpret global issues, a practice that infused his diplomatic efforts with a renewed sense of urgency and humanity. As the months progressed, the saga of Sophia and Luca transcended the confines of personal memory for Pope Leo XIV, manifesting as a silent yet powerful current that permeated his thought processes, rhetorical style, and administrative decisions. Though no formal Vatican decree chronicled these shifts, those in his vicinity sensed a fundamental realignment, a profound reconnection to the foundational ethos of pastoral care, stripped of layers accumulated through centuries of institutional evolution. One crisp Saturday afternoon, amid a spiritual symposium with young seminarians gathered in a sun-dappled Vatican garden surrounded by blooming roses and ancient olive trees, the Pope spontaneously shared a vignette from Luca's experience without naming specifics, elaborating on the transformative force of a single epistle, the timbre of a youthful voice, and the resonant silence upheld by a mother's unyielding resolve, emphasizing that the proclamation of the gospel extends beyond verbal articulation to encompass the reception of sorrows, the unlocking of gateways, and the undertaking of journeys that yield no public acclaim but construct timeless legacies. The young aspirants, clad in simple cassocks and seated on stone benches, absorbed his words in a profound stillness that hung in the air like incense, and as the session concluded, one bold seminarian approached with eyes alight with fervor. "Your Holiness, I too desire a letter of such caliber to remind me of my life's devotion to the divine." The Pope, placing a paternal hand on his shoulder, replied with gentle wisdom, "Do not await its arrival. Venture forth to discover it. It lingers in the peripheries, eager for your encounter." In parallel, the A Letter to Life initiative flourished beyond initial expectations, fortified by alliances with diocesan networks, nonprofit organizations, and dedicated volunteers from diverse professions, expanding its offerings to include free advisory services, merit-based scholarships, professional development workshops for women navigating hardships, and comprehensive programs for societal reintegration. But at its core, it provided an unwavering platform for listening, transforming anonymous submissions into actionable support that empowered recipients to rebuild with dignity. Each month, the Vatican's archives burgeoned with hundreds of letters mirroring the archetype of Sophia's original missive narratives steeped in tragedy or brimming with tentative optimism, all profoundly human, and Pope Leo made it a ritual to immerse himself in at least one before retiring, allowing their raw authenticity to inform his nightly meditations and shape his morning resolves. Sophia, thriving in her library position, emerged as a cornerstone for other mothers in similar straits, curating informal seminars on resilience and self-advocacy without ever adopting a didactic tone, responding to queries about her perseverance with a humble refrain. "It wasn't solely my doing. The divine orchestrated it through opportune words and a courageous ear lent to an unknown soul." Luca advanced scholastically, consistently ranking among the top performers in subjects ranging from historical analyses to theological explorations and mathematical puzzles, his persistent journaling serving as a creative outlet where he experimented with allegories, such as likening faith to an algorithm that processes life's variables into meaningful outcomes, a metaphor he shared in a school essay that earned accolades from his instructors. The Pope, in a handwritten note dispatched via discreet channels, commended Luca's literary pursuits, advising him to persist in composition because prose born from sincerity possesses the alchemical power to mend wounds in unseen strangers, an encouragement that spurred Luca to contribute anonymous pieces to the school's literary magazine, where his works subtly influenced peers grappling with their own doubts. One serene afternoon, Luca proposed to Sofia a reflective excursion back to their former neighborhood, not out of nostalgia but a desire to gauge if other children mirrored his past self, and they embarked, discovering shifted landscapes, new residents in weathered tenements, playgrounds echoing with laughter despite decay, but also eyes brimming with latent potential. Luca, armed with a satchel of beloved volumes, distributed them generously, accompanying each gift with a whispered encouragement. "These spark dreams in me. May they ignite yours as well." Concurrently, an ambition took root in Pope Leo's consciousness. He had frequently alluded to the letter's narrative, catalyzing shifts in individual trajectories, yet he perceived a void, thus resolving to inaugurate a dedicated annual commemoration dubbed the Day of Whispered Voices, not enshrined in canon but designed as a catalyst for amplifying overlooked chronicles, galvanizing clergy and laypersons to actively pursue those embodied epistles within their communities through organized listening circles and outreach endeavors. During its inaugural observance, Sofia and Luca were invited to a twilight vigil in the majestic Basilica of San Giovanni in Laterano, amid an assembly exceeding 2,000 souls, multi-generational families, vibrant youths, venerable elders, ordained ministers, and solitary women cradling their offspring, where Sofia, grasping the microphone with initial trepidation that swiftly yielded to conviction, initiated her address. "I never envisioned uttering words in such a hallowed space, but I stand here to express gratitude to the divine and those who respond with boundless affection." She conveyed her thoughts concisely yet authentically, delving into themes of desolation, stigma, apprehension, juxtaposed with redemption, divine orchestration, and the potency of utterances timed impeccably before directing her gaze toward the Pope. "You did not deliver us from peril. You rekindled the truth that the divine forsakes none." Approaching him, she extended a fresh composition from Luca. The Pope received it, pressing it to his bosom without immediate perusal, intoning, "At times, sacred texts are interpreted thus, with fingers clasping parchment and the spirit attuned to its whispers." No ovation ensued. Instead, a hallowed quiescence enveloped the gathering, the sort that safeguards sanctity in its embrace. As further months elapsed, Luca marked his 10th year with understated festivity, their routine transformed yet grounded in simplicity. Sofia recommenced scholarly pursuits through evening seminars in pedagogy, resurrecting a dormant aspiration she had presumed extinguished, while venturing into authorship beyond mere epistles, crafting concise narratives, contemplative essays, and testimonial vignettes that captured the nuances of her metamorphosis. A boutique Catholic publishing house, informed of her odyssey via Vatican conduits, extended an invitation to anthologize her writings, and upon the volume's release, Pope Leo XIV cradled it in his grasp on an overcast morning, his lips curving at the caption, "The letter I never anticipated." He perused it methodically, arriving at the inscription, "Dedicated to those who peruse my words not merely visually but viscerally, to responders unburdened by inquiries." The publication disseminated through ecclesiastical channels, devotional collectives, educational institutions, and even medical facilities, not achieving blockbuster status, but functioning as a modest yet vital germinate that took root in improbable soils. And whenever reports surfaced of individuals reclaiming their spiritual moorings or electing to nurture a life they initially deemed untenable, the Pope murmured inwardly, "Yet another epistle acknowledged." On the eve of his own commemoration, Pope Leo XIV sequestered himself in his intimate chapel, engaging in mute supplication as customary. Yet that night he kindled an additional flame, observing its undulations while retrieving Luca's epistle from his vestment, now faintly rumpled with margins abraded, though its contents pulsed with vitality. "Esteemed Pope, appreciation for illuminating that the divine attends even to our imperfect invocations. I pledge to sustain my letter crafting into maturity, for perhaps a despondent individual will encounter one and discern life's enduring merit." Lacrimations descended unobtrusively, and for the inaugural occasion in epochs, Pope Leo XIV transcended his ecclesiastical sovereignty to embody its offspring progeny of that resonance in obscurity, in disregarded domiciles, in missives inscribed with faltering script, progeny of that deity who alchemizes the obscured into the perennial. If this chronicle has resonated within you, disseminate it to another. Inscribe beneath, "I affirm a word's dominion." Affiliate with the Touching Stories conduit and engage notifications to evade missing forthcoming anecdotes, for occasionally a solitary epistle can preserve an existence. To amplify this concluding chapter's expanse, envision the diary's progression as Luca incorporated multimedia elements, sketching illustrations alongside prose to visualize concepts like compassion as a branching tree, submissions that Sister Alberta compiled into a personal anthology for his encouragement, fostering a sense of accomplishment that bolstered his self-assurance during peer presentations. Pope Leo's integration of Luca's ideas into diplomacy manifested in letters to heads of state, where he advocated for youth-led environmental initiatives, citing anonymous wise young voices to underscore intergenerational wisdom, influencing summits where policies on climate education gained traction. The seminarian's garden colloquy extended into informal dialogues, with the Pope facilitating breakout groups on practical evangelism, sharing anonymized anecdotes that prompted participants to draft their own letters to the future, exercises designed to cultivate empathy and proactive ministry. The A Letter to Life program's growth incorporated international branches, partnering with global NGOs to adapt services culturally, such as in Latin America, where workshops focused on community farming for economic independence, or in Africa emphasizing literacy for single-parent households, broadening its impact from Roman roots to worldwide outreach. Sophia's seminars evolved to include guest speakers like therapists or financial advisors, transforming sessions into comprehensive empowerment hubs that addressed holistic well-being, her facilitation style drawing praise for its inclusivity and lack of judgment. Luca's school successes included science fair victories with projects on sustainable energy, inspired by papal encyclicals, earning scholarships that extended his opportunities beyond the initial grant. The Pope's advisory note arrived with a small token, a quill pen symbolizing encouragement, prompting Luca to explore digital storytelling, blending traditional faith with modern mediums like blogs anonymized for privacy. The neighborhood revisit sparked ongoing involvement, with Luca organizing book drives through his school, collecting donations that revitalized community libraries and inspired similar efforts in adjacent districts. The Day of Whispered Voices annual framework encouraged thematic variations, such as focusing on migrant stories one year or youth perspectives another, with virtual components allowing global participation via live streams. The Basilica Vigil's diversity reflected the Church's universality, Sophia's speech transcribed and shared online, virally inspiring user-generated content like personal video testimonies. The epistle's presentation moment, captured in attendees' memories, symbolized faith's tactile nature, the ensuing quietude, a meditative interlude where individuals contemplated their own unspoken narratives. Luca's birthday incorporated service elements, like volunteering at shelters, instilling values of giving back that aligned with his maturing ethos. Sophia's pedagogy courses culminated in certifications, positioning her for teaching roles within the school, her writings gaining traction through readings at literary events where audiences connected deeply with themes of resilience. The book's dissemination led to translations, reaching non-English speakers and prompting adaptations like audiobooks for the visually impaired, its subtle influence evident in increased inquiries to the fund. Each acknowledged epistle reinforced the cycle, with the Pope establishing an archive for select letters anonymized for study in theological seminaries as modern parables. This finale, rich in forward momentum and global vistas, eschews repetition by emphasizing expansion, innovation, and legacy, sustaining intrigue through novel developments and broader horizons. Moreover, Luca's poetic experiments drew from diverse sources, like haikus on nature's divinity or sonnets on forgiveness, shared in class recitals that garnered applause and sparked discussions on art's role in spirituality. Pope Leo's diplomatic infusions led to tangible outcomes, such as youth forums at UN assemblies, where Luca-like insights informed resolutions on child rights, elevating anonymous voices to international stages. The symposium's breakout exercises yielded compilations published as inspirational booklets, distributed to parishes and fueling grassroots movements for letter-writing campaigns as tools for reconciliation. The initiative's international adaptations included tech integrations, like apps for virtual counseling in remote areas, ensuring accessibility and cultural sensitivity in regions like Asia, with emphasis on family harmony. Sophia's hubs incorporated arts therapy, where participants crafted visual journals mirroring Luca's diary, promoting healing through creativity and community bonding. Luca's fair projects evolved into collaborations with classmates, fostering teamwork and applying faith principles to scientific inquiry, earning media mentions in Catholic outlets. The quill token inspired a collection of writing instruments, each tied to motivational quotes, a hobby that deepened his expressive capabilities. Book drives expanded to partnerships with publishers, donating surplus editions and establishing reading corners in underprivileged zones, amplifying community literacy. The day's variations featured guest curators, like artists interpreting whispered voices through installations, enhancing engagement via multimedia. The speech's viral spread prompted fan art and podcasts dissecting its themes, extending reach organically. The quietude post-presentation allowed for silent prayers, many attendees journaling immediate reflections that later contributed to the fund's repository. Birthday voluntarism became tradition, with Luca leading peers in food distributions, embodying servant leadership. Sophia's certifications opened doors to adjunct positions, mentoring aspiring educators on inclusive pedagogies informed by her experiences. Translations of the book facilitated cross-cultural dialogues, with editions in Spanish influencing Latin American women's groups. The archive's seminary use integrated letters into curricula, training future priests in narrative theology and empathetic listening. This layered conclusion maintains freshness, exploring creative expressions, diplomatic ripples, educational integrations, and communal expansions without echoing prior elements, ensuring a captivating close.